CROSSWALK, how's it going? Hopefully things are going well with you. I'm a little hungry. It's almost lunchtime. Hey, you know what? That actually has something to do with what we're going to talk about in God's Word today. You don't believe me? Well, just so you know, Jesus got hungry. The disciples got hungry. And the people who followed them, they got hungry too. So today we're going to be in John chapter 6. And the people got hungry. And Jesus told the disciples, how are you going to feed them? Now let's think about this. A lot of people followed Jesus, right? In this account, it actually talks about 5,000. But we know it was fairly common in that day and age to only count the adult men. That means there likely were even more women and children. And Jesus asked the disciples to feed them. How would you guys feed 5,000 people? I don't know how many go to your school, but if you think about times in the cafeteria, there were probably less than 5,000 people. I'm just going to take a guess. That's a lot of work and a lot of food to feed the people in your cafeteria. Can you imagine feeding over 5,000 people? The disciples didn't have any clue what to do. But one of them brought something up. Let's go to John chapter 6 and verse 8 and 9. You can find that somewhere. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, him being Jesus, there's a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. But what are they among so many? 5 barley loaves. Think of it as like 5 hamburger buns and 2 small fish. For any of you who've ever been fishing, think about maybe the size of a perch. That's like enough for 1, maybe 2 people to have a meal. Not enough to feed 5,000. And also, where did this disciple figure out that there was a boy who had 2 fish and 5 barley loaves? That boy must have been willing to share. That boy must have been willing to give up his lunch or dinner to try to help the disciples, to try to help Jesus, to try to help those around him. God doesn't need what we offer to give him, but he wants us to give with a willing heart. This boy was willing to give his lunch to help. Was it enough, like the disciples said? No. But God created the heavens and the earth. Did he need a boy's lunch in order to be able to feed 5,000 people? No. He could just speak, and tables upon tables of pizza, well, maybe not pizza, but tables upon tables of food could have just appeared. But as we read on, later in the chapter, we find out what God did with the little that boy was willing to give. In verse 10, Jesus said, make the people sit down, he said to the disciples. Now there was much grass in the place, and the men sat down, in number about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to the disciples, and the disciples to those sitting down, and likewise the fish, as much as they wanted. And when they were filled, he said to the disciples, gather up the fragments that remain, so nothing is lost. And they gathered them up, and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of 5 barley loaves, which were left over by those who had eaten. Jesus provided more than 5,000 people needed from the lunch of a young man, a boy, who was willing to give. How much more can he do with what we are willing to give to him when we give our lives to Jesus? Thanks, CROSSWALK, and have a great week. So this is us. Today we're going to teach about... Wait, be quiet. Don't worry, we'll let it down. So, as I was saying, there's a plane. It's okay. Nick will edit that out.